Hi everyone. So today what we're going to learn is we're going to learn about the order of operations but with decimals. Now we've seen order of operations before in the past, but I want to review some of the ideas and go over it with the use of the decimals that we've been learning over the past few days. Now when we think of the order of operations, what we typically remember is this acronym called BEDMAS, which we know as brackets, then exponents, then division and multiplication, then addition and subtraction. Now we've seen all that before, so a lot of this is review, but what I wanted to do in this video is go over two key questions. And the first one is why we actually need the order of operations, and then the second one is actually doing a question using the order of operations. All right, so to actually answer the question why we actually need the order of operations, it's easiest to go through an example. So here we have Jade, her two parents, and her two brothers decide to go to the St. George's School play, Pirates of the Curry Bean. Let's suppose tickets are $12.50 for each adult and $8.75 for each student. Calculate the total cost. So in this situation, what we know is we know that there are 3 children, so 3 child tickets, and we also know that there are 2 adult tickets. Now, it would make sense that the child pays $8.75 each, and then the adults pay $12.50 each. So how that would set up is it would set up like this: 3 times $8.75 plus 2 times $12.50. Now, if you were to look at this equation and you were to just go from left to right and multiply from left to right, you're going to get a number that really doesn't make very much sense. So I'm going to do this on the calculator on the side, but 3 times $8.75 turns out to be $26.25. And then we continue with the rest of the equation because we didn't really touch it. And then we move on to our next step. Now, if we were to go left to right, now I need to do 26 plus the 2, which would then become $28.25. And then finally, our last step would then be, okay, $28 times $12, which would become $353.13. Now, when we see a number like that, $353.13, our alarm bell should really be going off. So our math intuition should really be telling us, hey, this number makes no sense whatsoever. We only have 3 children and 2 adults, and these tickets are approximately $10 each. This $353 really makes no sense, and that's because we used our incorrect order of operations, or really we didn't use order of operations at all. So when we see an example where we know that we need to use the order of operations, there are a couple of ways that we can do this. Now, I will mention that typically you're going to be asked to do the order of operations using like pen and paper, and then you will also be asked to do the order of operations using the calculator. So for a question like this, you would typically say, okay, well, we have 3 tickets, it's $8.75 per ticket, and then on the side you would just write $8.75 times 3, and then you would just do all your work down here. Now, I do think it's important we learn what the calculator is actually doing when we use it, so I am going to use a calculator for this question just so you can see what's going on. Now, when we use our calculators, there's 2 ways to do this. We can take it step by step. So what that means is I can say, well, here, I know I need to do $8.75 times 3, and here, I know I need to do $2 times 12, or 2 people times $12.50. So we would go to our calculator, we would say 3 times $8.75, and again we come up to this number, 26.25. And then we would clear our calculator and then do the next step from a brand new start, and then we would see that this is $25. And then finally we would add it, and we would get our answer 2625 plus 25, and that would be 5125. Now this answer makes a lot more sense. Now, one of the cool things about calculators or scientific calculators today is they actually know BEDMAS and they know the order of operation, so they do it all for us, even if we enter it from left to right like we did in that very first example. So when we see 3 times $8.75 and then plus 2 and $12.50, if we enter that straight in, so 3 times $8.75, and then we say plus 2 times $12.50, our calculator actually already does the order of operations, and when we hit enter, we are going to get our correct answer, $51.25. Now, however, not all calculators do this. So suppose you now have this calculator and we try to do the same thing. What you're going to notice is that the answer comes out quite different. So again, if I hit 3 times $8.75, and this time I hit plus 2 times $12.50, and we hit enter, we're going to come up with the same answer that we came up with at the beginning of this video, $353. So this particular calculator doesn't have the order of operations built in, whereas our the previous one actually does. So what you're going to have to do is play around with your calculator and see, oh, does mine actually know BEDMAS without me having to do all the steps properly. Okay, so we're done. We answered our 2 questions. The first question was why we actually need to use the order of operations, and then the second one was just going through an example. Now, what I would like you to do now is take a minute and write some notes down. Were there any questions that you still didn't understand? So was there any section of the video or anything that I did that you didn't understand? I want you to write that down, because when you come into class tomorrow, I want you to answer. I will take the time to answer those questions. And the second thing I want you to do is I want you to use this little space down here to summarize anything new that you've learned. Now, again, a lot of this is review, so this might be pretty clear for most of you, but if you have learned something new, or if there was something you haven't learned in the past, take this space to summarize your learning, and then tomorrow we will go over any questions that you still have.